Katie here. This is the first time that I've made a video in such a long time. So I've been really quiet on my channel lately. Basically that's because 2017 kicked me in the backside. It hasn't exactly been the easiest of years, so I lost a lot of motivation to make videos, to write reviews for my blog, and I lost my overall motivation to read. I don't want to bore you with the details on here, but I did write a blog post explaining a few things about why I've been so inactive this year, so I will leave a link to it in the description if you want to check that out at all. But yeah, overall, it's been a pretty crappy year, so my reading hasn't been up to scratch. There were plenty of books that I was really excited for, and I have them, but I just haven't had the motivation to be able to pick them up and enjoy them. So I put off reading them because I didn't want to feel like I was forcing myself to read them, because I love books, so I want to enjoy them. So I took a little time away from all things bookish for a while. This year though, I am determined to get my reading back on track, because like I said, I love books. My life revolves around books, and I feel like I'm not me without them. So I'm really getting back into reading again, so far this January anyway, so I'm hoping I can keep that up. So back to what I did manage to read in 2017. It wasn't a lot of books. Normally I breeze past my Goodreads reading challenge of 50 books. This year I barely made it to half of that, so there haven't been as many standout books for me this year, just because I haven't been picking up as many. So for my best books of 2017, I am doing 7 instead of 10. Because I wasn't at my best reading level last year, I tried to put aside the books that I felt like I had to be reading and instead went for ones that I really wanted to read. I specifically went looking for the type of books that I know I'd enjoy. So my list of books this year are ones that I have really loved. So let's get into this list. So number 7 on my list is A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sarah Bernard. I read this at the very start of 2017 and I made a video with regards to its subject matter as well, so I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to check that out. This book is about a girl called Steffi who is a selective mute, and she ends up befriending a boy who starts her school called Reese, and he is deaf. Because of Steffi's mutism, she knows a little bit of sign language, so she is one of the only people in the school that can properly communicate with Reese. So this book shows their bond that they form, and it also shows Steffi's struggle with her mutism and her other issues that she has with mental health. And this was just such a different book for me. Mutism was something that I hadn't really read anything about in YA before, and also having another main character who was deaf. I just don't come across that too often in the books that I read. So I really loved getting to see how the characters dealt with those things. And I also loved how sign language played such a huge part in the story. Another thing that really stood out to me about this book was Steffi's anxiety. Obviously I can't relate to her mutism, but some of the things that she was going through with anxiety, I've been in that frame of mind before. And it's always a good moment when you're reading a book and you can just completely feel what the character is saying and what they are feeling. And I had that a few times in this book because of Steffi's anxiety. So overall, I just thought that the characters in this book were wonderful, and it was such a unique topic, and I would love to see more stories like this in contemporary YA. It's also a UK YA book, and I'm trash for UK YA. The next book on my list is Release by Patrick Ness. From the moment this book was announced, I knew I had to read it. It was described as a mashup of Forever by Judy Blume and Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Forever is one of those books that most people read in high school. It has such a legendary status. I read it for the first time when I was about 13, and then as I reached the end of my teens, I reread it because I was going through a phase of just rediscovering books from my younger teens. And when I was rereading it, I really wanted a modern day version, maybe something that didn't just focus on a typical white heterosexual girl as well, because times have changed and we've got plenty of stories like that. We just needed a more modern, updated version of that format of story. And also Mrs. Dalloway is one of my favourite stories, so when I read that this was going to be a modern day version of that as well, I was sold. I was completely sold. So Release tells the story of Adam, and it follows the same format that Mrs. Dalloway does. If you've never read Mrs. Dalloway, then it takes place over the course of one day, whilst Mrs. Dalloway is preparing for a party in the evening. So this book follows that. It ends in a going away party for someone that Adam used to consider a boyfriend, but that boy didn't really see Adam as anything more than just friends with benefits. He's moving away, so they're having this big party for him. Adam has a boyfriend that he loves very much, but throughout the book, he still has certain feelings about this other boy. He's also from a very religious family, so they don't really accept the fact that he's gay. So this book sort of just deals with all of those things that Adam has to go through, and everything comes to a head on this one day. It's such a clever story, and there is also a fantasy element in it as well. So it was like a mix of two genres, and it was just so interesting, and the characters were fantastically written. Patrick Ness is such a wonderful writer as well, so if you've never read any of his books, then seriously start with anything that he writes. So number 5 on my list is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Stein. This one wasn't published in 2017, but it is a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time. So when I was dealing with my dreaded reading slump last year, I finally managed to pick this up. Oh my god, I really wish I hadn't waited so long to read it. It is just so gorgeous. This book follows two characters called Aristotle and Dante. They are two quite different boys who form an unlikely friendship, and over the course of the book they develop feelings for each other. They are just very rich characters. They have so much to them. It's kind of hard to explain, but the story doesn't have that many fantastic plot twists. I don't mean that in a bad way, I just mean that the plot itself is quite a basic story, but it's just the characters and the writing itself that makes it so amazing. The writing is quite poetic at times. I can't really think of a book that I've read that's similar to this one. It's just so standout to me. What I also loved about the writing is that it doesn't get too bogged down in description. It's very straight to the point. It's dialogue and things that matter, and that is all you need with this story. It focuses so much on their thoughts and their feelings. It just makes for a wonderful relationship between these two characters. I got so attached to them. I know there is a sequel coming out, I think this year, so I am very excited to see these characters again. This is definitely one to try if you haven't read it yet. Book number 4 is Vanilla by Billy Merrill. This book, finally someone gave me what I wanted. Over the past year I've been wanting to find a book with an asexual main character, and I finally found that in Vanilla. The main character in this book is called Vanilla, hence the title, and this story follows his journey to realizing that he is asexual. He has been with his boyfriend Hunter since they were really young. They are that one couple in high school that everyone envies because they have this perfect relationship, but as they've gotten older, Hunter wants to start taking their relationship to the next level physically, and Vanilla doesn't want that, and he struggles to explain how he feels about sex to his boyfriend. This book is so great because it just does a fantastic job of showing you what people who are asexual have to go through. It told the story not only from Vanilla's point of view, but also from Hunter as well. So as readers, we get to see how it makes him feel, because he ends up jumping to conclusions that Vanilla doesn't love him enough to have sex with him. Things like that asexual people have to deal with, because of course that's not the truth. Vanilla loves Hunter very much, he just doesn't want to have sex with him. It was so great to read a book that finally demonstrated that. This story is also told entirely in verse, so you get some beautifully presented poems throughout this book. It's just really lovely to read. I've not read a YA book that's told in verse before, so that was a new thing for me and I really enjoyed it. There is also another character called Angel. This character starts off with a different name, and throughout the story we read about their struggle with gender identity. From reading the blurb, I just thought that this focused purely on asexuality. So it was a really nice surprise to have a storyline that dealt with gender identity as well. And again, that part of the story was told brilliantly. My favourite part of this story was Vanilla actually discovering asexuality and finding out that what he's feeling is valid and that there isn't anything wrong with him. There are people like him out there. Seeing a character go through that discovery was just a really nice read. Obviously, this is just one author's take on asexuality. Vanilla is just one character with his own fictional experience, so it's not going to be representative of everyone who is asexual. So that's something to keep in mind if you are reading this and you are asexual. Not everyone is going to be able to relate to what's in here, but there will be some people out there who can relate to the emotions and the feelings that Vanilla has. That makes me so happy to know that people will be able to find themselves in the pages of this book. So moving into the top 3 is Noah Can't Even by Simon James Green. The amount of love I have for this book is unreal, honestly. It's just such a funny, light-hearted and nice story, and I desperately needed a book like this in 2017. I read so many fantasy stories and so many darker stories that I forget how nice it is to just jump into something light. This book reminded me of why I used to read so many books like this in my teens, because it just made me laugh so much. This story follows a boy called Noah in high school. He ends up falling for his best friend, Harry. Harry knows and accepts the fact that he's gay, whereas Noah hasn't quite accepted that fact for himself yet. So this story is basically him learning that he is gay and how he deals with that. And it's written in such typical teenage boy fashion. The writing in this book is really conversational and witty, and it's just fun. There aren't many light-hearted YA books that have gay characters. I've only really read a handful, so it's great to read a YA book that takes a boy dealing with being gay and turns it into such a humorous story like this one. And some of the situations that Noah finds himself in are completely hilarious. A lot of the time it's ridiculous, but hilariously ridiculous. Him and Harry are great characters. This is the first in a series, so I am very excited about Noah's future. I cannot wait to see what he ends up doing next, because he is very unpredictable. So number 2 on my list, and I will be very honest, I basically couldn't choose between 2 and 1. So honestly, they're kind of on level with each other. But number 2 is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I had seen so many people talking about this book, so I was looking forward to reading it, but I was also a little bit wary of it being one of those books that just has a lot of hype around it. But I seriously can't explain how much this book is worth the hype. And it's not just pointless hype over a book either. It's hype because the issues within this book are so prominent. It's painful to know how real the situations these characters go through are for people out there today. It is impossible to read this book and not get angry on behalf of the characters, especially when you know that whilst these characters are fictional, these situations are happening in our real life, and it's so common as well. The main character of this story is a 16-year-old girl named Star. She witnesses the murder of her best friend by a white police officer. And whilst that's something that shouldn't be a common occurrence in America, it is. I think this book came out at the perfect time because shootings like this have been going on for so long. And whilst victims of these crimes have been trying to speak out for years about what's happening, I feel like over the past couple of years, they're finally starting to be heard more. It's still not enough, of course, but people are starting to listen now. So I think the timing of this book being released was great. The characters in this book are just some of the best characters that I've come across in YA. They're so full of personality and they are so believable. There are characters in this book that will make you mad. Specifically one of Star's friends, a very typical privileged white girl who says stupid things and literally cannot see the problems with what she is saying. She doesn't see how she's offending with the words that she's using. And what's sad is that there are so many people like that. There are so many people who are ignorant and they speak before they think. So not only do we have the overall issue of problematic white police in America, we also have examples of the everyday racism that people have to face as well. This book does a fantastic job of explaining what it's like to go through that. So it did end up being one of my favourite books of 2017. I know it's going to be turned into a movie and the cast looks fantastic. so I am very excited to see that. These characters are just brilliant, so if you haven't picked this one up yet, then you really need to do so. So my favourite book of 2017 isn't exactly surprising because I am extremely predictable, but it is Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Dark Artificers series, and of course it was my favourite because I am trash for these stories. They never seem to stop. The series within the Shadowhunter world just keeps expanding, and I am someone who grows quite bored of long series, so normally I try to escape, but Cassandra Clare just drags me back every single time. She will not let me go. I do keep meaning to post my review of this on my channel, and I will do at some point, but I did read it in March, and because I didn't make a video straight away, I feel like I need to go through it again and pick out the things that I really want to talk about. I will be honest and say that I didn't like it as much as I liked Lady Midnight, but I still completely adored it. For this series, it's the characters that I love so much. Cassie always manages to make her characters so interesting. It's them that I adore and that keep me reading these books. But there were also many more interesting aspects of the shadow world within this story as well. This book deals with things that haven't previously been dealt with in other Shadowhunter books. So I'm glad that we're still getting to discover new things and talk about new topics. I don't want to go too in depth because this is a huge book and I could probably talk about it all day. So what I will say is that whilst I did find it slow at parts, the last few chapters of this book are some of the best in all of the Shadow World books. That final chapter, I hate it, but it's absolutely brilliant. It made me want to throw this book across the room, but it also dragged me back from wherever I was crawling and put me firmly in my place. Reminded me why I love the writing within these books so much. The way this story ended, no. I need the third book immediately. So yeah, it was the final few chapters of this book that sealed the deal for this being my favourite of 2017. It was a big move, but it was a good one. So they are my favourites from the past year. Honestly, there were so many books released in 2017 that I was really looking forward to, but I haven't gotten around to reading yet. So they are the 7 that stood out to me the most out of the pitiful amount of books that I read. I am really looking forward to what I'm reading in 2018. I have already started 2 books so far this year, which I am really pleased about because in 2017 I was lucky if I got through 1 book in a month. So I am happy that I seem to be falling back into my books quite nicely at the moment. Hopefully that will continue. So please do let me know all of your favourites from 2017. What books did you love? Were there any books that let you down? Also, what are you looking forward to reading in 2018? Let me know all the bookish things down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am sorry that I didn't have more videos in 2017, but my goal for this next year is to start filming videos again. I hope you all have a wonderful 2018, reading wise and non-reading wise, because God knows we all need some happy things in this next year. We do. After the past couple of years we've been through, we need nice things. I will see you all back here soon with some more bookish content. Bye!